Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 94 of the Chronological Read Through the Bible. Today's reading covers Judges chapter 11, starting in verse 28 through chapter 15. Now, this is a lot to cover today. I'm just going to really try to just touch on a couple of points, which I really feel are of interest to point out. So, we started yesterday with Japheth, and we got up right to the point that he is about to go into battle. Now, again, remember, he was chased off by his brothers because he was a half-brother, the son of a prostitute. And they pushed him away. But now that they need him, they have pulled him back in. They said, hey, we need you now. We need you to come and fight for us. How sad. But that happens in regular life, though. People will at times push somebody away until the moment that they need them. And that's exactly what they do. They draw him back in. Well, as Japheth gets ready to pursue and attack the Ammonites, he's going to make a pledge to the Lord. And it's a vow unto God. He's going to say, Lord, deliver this battle into my hands, and whatever comes out of the doorway of my house upon my return, I shall offer to you as a burnt offering. He really did not think this vow through. Unless he was thinking that he had a pet goat in the house that was going to wander out, a chicken, his mother-in-law maybe. I don't know what he was thinking. But upon his return from a successful campaign, it is none other than his daughter who comes out of the house. And she's clearly heard of her father's victory, and she comes out with a tambourine in her hand, and she's dancing. And his heart melts. He rips his clothes, and he tells her, you have troubled me this day. Because his vow would have to be fulfilled. And he tells her, I will have to fulfill my vow before God. Now, I need to address here, and this is why I specifically point this out. Commentaries are divided on what happens next. Some commentaries will say that he did offer his daughter as an offering, but others, and this is actually more of where I lean, and this, sad to say, is in the fewer numbers that would say this, is that he offered her up as a living sacrifice rather than a burnt offering. It has her go off with the maidens and have a time of mourning, of weeping, and then she returns, never to marry again, possibly to serve in the tabernacle or serve the priest there, but she would remain a virgin for the rest of her life. That's what some commentaries teach. But if you remember, back when we were in Leviticus and Numbers, each time we came to vows being made before the Lord, I said we're coming up on a lesson that will come up in Judges, where you need to pay attention to the part in addressing vows that said if someone makes a rash vow, a vow without having thought through the consequences, that they can, in a sense, not completely get out of it, but what they would pay for that vow. So they would redeem that vow in another way. It's interesting. Japheth, when we were dealing with yesterday, he clearly has a knowledge of the history, but did not apparently know the laws of Israel. So he knew their history, but he didn't know their laws. And oftentimes the two will kind of go together, but other times they're separate. And he didn't realize that he could have redeemed his daughter by basically buying back or paying the ransom price for her. So that was a sad account. And why was it so sad? Because she was his only child. It's not like he had several children. It points out in Scripture that she was his only child. Well, I also want to point out this conflict that arises between Ephraim, or the tribe of Ephraim, and the remaining tribes of Israel at that time. And this conflict, again, they throw this idea up there again, saying, you didn't call us out to battle. Well, they all could have fought. Yes, they could have gone out. We're about to see this with the last judge that we're looking at today. Again, where at one point the people, they just don't come and stand up for themselves. But it's like, why were the Ephraimites so worked up? I feel like it's because they didn't get to participate in the spoils of war. It wasn't that, well, we didn't have an opportunity to fight. It's that we didn't have an opportunity for the spoils of war. It doesn't exactly say that, but otherwise you'd say, if they were so eager to fight the Ammonites, why didn't they go and fight them beforehand? Well, that's what I feel was taking place. But they come to the brook, and they're trying to disguise themselves. It says the men of Gilead would say, are you Ephraimite? And if he said no, then they would say to him, now say Shibboleth. Now I may be pronouncing it wrong too, so don't kill me. But if they said Shibboleth, or Sibboleth, they would put them to death because they had mispronounced it. Well, that is one of the words for brook, and it depends on how they would pronounce it. And the Ephraimites were very well known for dropping the H sound in that word. It would be very similar, comparable to this in the U.S. In the U.S., if you're from more of a southern and in particular rural community, you might say crick. But if you're from a northern area or a more kind of metropolis area, you would say creek. So the difference between creek and crick, to some it may not mean that, sound that different, or some might not even understand what you mean by crick. But that would be a very similar wording and a difference in pronunciation of people. Whether she used to do this in humor, because she was quite a humorist, but my grandmother, my mother's mother, would oftentimes say banana instead of banana, or winder instead of window. Now, whether some of that is in jest or part of her little comic routine, I don't know. And it probably has just become a part of her life because of her doing that so oftentimes in making fun of the way that certain things are pronounced. But you can kind of see there a part of what's taking place. I don't want to linger there too long. I'm sorry, I probably got stuck on that. I just always find it funny. I do want to skip ahead. There's a number of judges there, and just for the sake of time, let me get into the life of Samson. Samson, his parents have a visit. His mother in particular has a visit from the angel of the Lord, and tells her that she will give birth to a son, and that he is to be a Nazarite, that he is to take that vow, that he's not to have anything to do with grapes, he's not to touch a dead body, he's not to cut his hair, he is to be set apart. Now, in the Bible, there's a number of people who take the Nazarite vow, but that was typically only for a month or a few months, maybe a year. But we only know of about 3 people who had taken or was given the Nazarite vow for life. And it really wasn't their choice as much as it was their parents and the place that God had put them in. So Samson being one. Samuel, God did not tell his mother to bring him up or raise him as a Nazarite. That was just the way that he was raised. And Then, of course, John the Baptist, being the last that we know of to have been a Nazirite or have taken that vow. Do not confuse the vow of a Nazirite with Jesus the Nazarene. Nazarene was a location of Nazareth versus Nazirite was a complete different mindset. And it's sad to say there are many people, pastors even, who at times will confuse those two. So make sure they are very different settings. So after this angel has appeared to the mother and given the mother instruction, once the father hears this, I got to meet this person for myself. You know, I mean, wouldn't you if you were the father? The other interesting thing is we're given the name of the father, but we're not given the name of the mother. And that is very curious as to why this takes place, why his father's name is given, but the mother's name is not. So, also in this, when the angel does appear a second time, it's the angel of the Lord, still only appears to the mother, and then she says, "Can you wait here? I need to go get my husband." And the angel does wait. And when the husband comes back, he says, well, what instructions do we need? What's really the purpose of our child? What's his occupation, basically, to be? Why is he given this strict rules? And then he says, let me bring a meal to you. And the angel of the Lord says, bring a burnt offering to me. I will not eat the food. And after the angel is gone, that's when the father of Samson says, we are going to die. We have seen God. He goes from this, panic to where it's like, well, let us bring an offering to you, to instantly like, we're going to die. We've seen God. This is another one of those points in times where, as I say, this is the pre-incarnate Christ, the pre-incarnation of Jesus that has come before them. And again, they have a very worshipful attitude. No angel of God would allow men to worship. No angel of God would have accepted the burnt offering. So this is the pre-incarnation of Christ. And then there's also the aspect of the fear that they are gripped with. And it's, we've seen God. We've seen the face of God. But his wife has to come back and calm him down and basically say he wouldn't have accepted our offering if he was going to kill us. And he wouldn't have given them that task. So Samson is named Samson. And just to give you a little background on his name, best translation would have come out to Sonny Boy. Sonny Boy. And whether this was, I don't know. Who knows really where the name came from. There is, though, a temple to the sun that was located in a close by proximity to where he was raised. I don't know whether the mother still had this mindset of naming him after this temple to the sun, or whether it was a hippie-ish name since he was going to have long hair. I don't know, but it's just funny. Sonny Boy. Samson, as he grows, he develops a very immature mindset and is inappropriate in his relationships and desires. And if you remember, the Hebrews are not supposed to have relationships with the tribes around them, with the Canaanite people. And yet, that's exactly what he ends up doing. It says that he saw a daughter of the Philistines, and then he goes back home, and he says to his parents, he says, now therefore, get her for me as a wife. And you can almost picture this whiny person. Get her for me as a wife. I must have her. But his father says to him, and his mother, is there no woman among the daughters of your relatives or among all of our people that you go and take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? But Samson said to his father, Get her for me, for she looks good to me. You know, if you remember, the forbidden fruit looked pleasing to Adam and Eve, or primarily Eve. It was something that they desired, that it looked good to them. Just because something looks good doesn't mean it's something you should have or desire. He's going to end up pursuing this Philistine woman in marriage. But notice a few little events that take place. First off, when his family is on their way to their house, he is in the vineyard where he meets with the lion. He's going to rip the lion in two, it says, like a man would rip a young goat in two. And so, you know, in the Mideast, normally they would cut the throat, but they might rip the legs apart to open up the animal, especially if it is a young goat. So this is really the first real clear sign of him being this super strong man. And then he, after their early pledges of marriage, he's going to pass back through that way, stop to see the lion, and see a honeycomb in it. And he's going to grab the honey out of this dead carcass of a lion. And he's going to offer some of it to his father and mother. As a Nazirite, remember, he wasn't supposed to even touch a dead body. Yet he does that with the lion. He isn't supposed to eat grapes and really shouldn't be wandering through the vineyard. And so I would say, though it doesn't tell us that he was eating grapes, why else would he have been in the vineyard? Now, remember, we also covered this forgive me, it's either in Numbers or Leviticus, where you could go through the vineyard and you could pick and eat grapes of even a vineyard that did not belong to you, provided that you weren't sticking those in your bag or your pocket or basket. You were allowed to do that. So I think that he was probably going through the vineyard eating grapes, or had that intention on both occasions. And this time when he sees the honey, he takes of it. Now, he's going to end up in a conflict at his future bride's party. He will tell them the riddle. Out of the strong came something sweet, and try to get them to solve this riddle. And his future bride, his fiance, will pester him until he gives her the answer to the riddle. And then the fellows at the party will pester her until she gives them the answer. And then he will get angry, right? When they guess the answer to the riddle. You've read this portion. I won't go through each step of it for the sake of time. But we also learn in this, not only does Samson allow his eyes to lead him into sin, but he places himself in a place, in a position that could easily lead to temptation. And then he doesn't pause over the lion when he collects the honey out of the dead carcass, but willingly does that. And we know that he knew that it was wrong, because he makes a statement of saying, when his fiance is pestering him about trying to determine the answer to the riddle, he says, I've not even told my parents the answer to the riddle. Why wouldn't he have told his parents where the honey came from? Because he knew that it was wrong to have touched the dead body of the lion. And then we see he allows his anger to take control. He's later going to get in this battle with the Philistines who want to kill him. After the events of this party, a number of issues take place. First off, he kills a number of Philistines and gives the men there their clothes, and then they are going to have retribution on the family, which of course he didn't even end up really married to the woman, though the wedding banquet was supposed to take place. That was what was occurring during the process of the riddle. And as I say, at this point, his anger has taken the better of him. But eventually, the Israelites, and this is what I wanted to end on at this point, they will come to arrest him on behalf of the Philistines. And they build up this little army to come and arrest him. And when they come to get him, he asks them the question. He says, well, are you going to kill me? And they say, no, we won't kill you. And so then he allows them to take him, and they bind him with 2 ropes, and they lead him away. This comes back to what I was saying with Jephthah and the Edomites. They could raise up an army of the Edomites to come up against Jephthah to say, you didn't allow us to fight in the battle. But they didn't raise up an army to go and fight the Ammonites. And yet at the same time, here the Hebrews raise up an army to come and arrest Samson. But they couldn't do that to resist the Philistines. There's this kind of odd thing that's going on here, to where the people only have the courage when they want to have it. And this is the account that's a very famous children's story here, where Samson's going to take the jawbone of a freshly dead donkey and slay the Philistines who have come for him. And again, he's now touching a dead body. As you prepare to go into tomorrow's reading, I want you to consider something. In tomorrow's reading, it keeps coming up the question of, where did you get your strength? Where do you get your strength? And as you think about this with Samson, sometimes you picture Samson being the strong man, the weightlifter, the great, strong person of the circus or the beach. I think that Samson was a very ordinary, maybe even a skinny, scrawny person. And that's why people keep asking him over and over, where do you get your strength? Because it clearly is not from your muscles and your workout routine. I just want you to think about that. We don't really have any frame of reference, but it never makes mention of him being an incredibly sized person. I think he was just ordinary. And I think if you read especially these verses for tomorrow with that in mind, of him just being an ordinary, everyday looking person, I think that you're going to see something a little different than you might have from the children's stories or the pictures out of the children's Bible growing up. Brothers and sisters, I'm sorry, I'm really having to compact today. First off, this would be about 3 sermons, and each of those being about 30 to 45 minutes. And it's tough to pack it. So I'm sorry if I skipped over stuff or just stumbled through it. I'm trying to make it as compact as possible. Tomorrow's hopefully will flow a little better. Well, I hope your day's gone well. Until tomorrow, God bless.